Buck, there is a story out that has gone viral, and everybody is writing about it, and everybody is clicking on it, and everybody is reacting to it. The airport in Orlando, Florida, now allows people to shop, eat, and visit without having a ticket. That is, in other words, you are not going to get on an airplane. And I'm reading from Mike Gunzelman's article at Outkick. And he starts off by, by saying, the Orlando airport is now welcoming all psychopaths and weirdos by offering a new pass that allows anyone to visit Terminal C, even if you don't have a ticket. You still have to go through airport security, but you are now allowed to experience the C terminal and actually be able to eat or drink there. Some people are saying that they like going to an airport restaurant or an airport bar. This has turned into a huge battle. Is this the worst decision ever? Or do you think there is a justification for this to occur? By the way, everybody on the crew here in New York, I'm interested in what you guys would say on this too, Buck. Would you ever go to an airport for any reason other than to fly?
Quick thing, a little preface to this. I forgot to tell you for my latest visit to South Carolina, which every time I go there, I'm like, I love South Carolina. I might have to live here. But anyway, put that aside. Because it's such everything. I love that state so much. But people there, a few of them came up to me at the big party, at the Admiral's party. They're like, hey, you and Clay, I got to say, I like everything you guys say. You know, love the show, all that good stuff. This whole not picking up relatives at the airport thing, though.
People are still fired up about this.
Lit up on that, just so you know. Lit up. So many of our people were like, but I want to say, picking someone up at the Charleston airport is a universe away from driving to JFK during rush hour in New York City or something, right? So it really,
I don't know anybody who would go to LAX voluntarily who is listening to us right now. To your point, New York City airports, like I just went to Panama City Beach, right? The Panama City Beach airport has like 6 gates. So if you're judging like a tiny airport where you can easily pull up and or there's a cell phone waiting area, there's a
real
big
test
difference.
is, are we talking major international airport with traffic on a regular basis? That
Chicago, Atlanta,
yes,
LA, New York.
Exactly.
No. I'm not going. All right. So,
so
now would you go to an airport?
No, absolutely not. Although I will say the Delta terminal in New York, LaGuardia, has gotten
fantastic,
really nice.
LaGuardia
and it used to be
like a great.
hellhole.
Oh my God, you're 100% right on this.
It was actually one of the funniest things.
It used to be a Greyhound. I used to feel like I was in a Greyhound bus terminal.
Yeah, totally.
It was awful. LaGuardia is really, really nice now.
Trump back in the day was even making funny comments about how, like, we have the worst airports in New York, the worst ever. And he was totally right. LaGuardia has gotten a lot better. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I had, I have a couple friends who told me that Union Station, now it's confusing because there are multiple Union Stations. There's one in Baltimore, there's one in D.C., but Union Station, D.C., which is now, again, I think, unfortunately, a lot of homeless and unsafe. But 10 years ago, people were having their proms there. So there is so that's a train station where people are, because it's a landmark building. It's actually very beautiful. And as long as it's clean and safe, it's a kind of place where they would use it as an event space. So I could see how people would start to think, if you were in the neighborhood, maybe if they had great shopping and great food. I don't want to discount that this is, but in general, I find airports to be among the most depressing places to spend time. So I tend to find myself alongside the commenters who are saying, why would you go to an airport unless you're flying or meeting somebody there?
Okay, so when we were in Australia, I was having a conversation with my kids about this. They couldn't believe it. In Australia, you don't have to have a ticket to enter the terminal. You can still go meet someone at the gate when they arrive. And my boys, who are 16, 13, and 9, they couldn't believe that pre-9/11, it was very common that when you went to the airport, you would park, you would go through security, and you would be waiting at the gate for your friend or family member to actually get off the plane. They couldn't believe it. You can still do that in Australia. I actually don't have a problem with trying to go back to that era, other than the fact that TSA lines are already messes. So my first thought on this is I've been to the Orlando airport. We've been to Disney, we've been to Universal with the kids. The Orlando airport often gets backed up, the security lines, in a miserable fashion. Much like Buck, where you are now down in South Florida, the friggin' Fort Lauderdale airport, when the cruise ships come in, you're standing behind thousands of people in line. So to me, when I think about this, I just think it makes everything worse for everybody. If there are people not actually getting on the planes, the lines are going to get long. Now, the other thing I would say, though, is I think we went back in the day, and some people tell me I'm crazy for remembering this. I think we had a field trip to the airport at my elementary school when I was a kid. We legit got on the, big yellow school buses, and they took us to the Nashville airport, and they just showed us around. And the idea was, because a lot of kids at that time in the 1980s, you might not get on an airplane very often. And it was, hey, let us show you what an airport is actually like for kids that might not be able to go to an airport and get on a flight. So a part of me, one, I hate the idea of the TSA line getting longer. A second part of me thinks if you had a 5 or 6-year-old and they really liked airplanes and they thought that it was cool, but maybe you're not somebody who's traveling or doesn't have the resources or the money to be able to do it, I can see how with a little kid, they could think a trip to the airport where you get to stand and look at all the airplanes and everything else would actually be, and you eat at a McDonald's or whatever they have in the food court, would actually be an awesome way. It's like a trip to the zoo for a little kid if they actually like airports. Does that make sense? So I can think about it from a parent perspective. That's really the only way. The idea of an adult by myself or on a date going to an airport terminal sounds like the worst date of all time.
Yeah, I think there are probably worse dates, but it's not a great date. I would agree with
I mean,
that
if a
one.
guy said to you, hey, babe, and you're listening to us in Orlando right now, I've got the perfect date. We're going to go to an airport bar. You should be concerned that you're going to get drugged and kidnapped and that the person that you're with is actually a cannibal,
He's
in my humble opinion.
or maybe sells your organs on the black market or
Yeah,
something.
it's
Yeah.
like you're basically
But
dating
what if they're
Jeffrey
gonna
Dahmer.
take you to have you ever tried one of the little places where they do the massage on the neck, you know? You know what I mean? The little thing
No,
with
because it's always, to me, feels like super weird. If someone can watch
I would
me,
totally do that.
if someone can watch me be massaged, it feels super, like, I understand there are people who are like, oh, I'm going to lay out on the beach and I'm going to get them. I don't want anybody. I've only done one massage in my life because you guys told me that I needed to go do a massage.
Yeah.
And so Laura and I got couples massage, which, by the way, wasn't even together. She went to one person and I went to the other person in a different room, which seems like not a couples massage at all. So just FYI. Second part on this, I don't want anybody looking at somebody rubbing, like my hamstring. Like, it feels very strange that there would be an audience. I see these people in the airport getting getting massages, and I'm like, what? Like, you have no decency? It's like the same thing where they have those feet massage things. You see those where they have like the fish that eat off your feet or whatever. You know what I'm talking
That
about?
freaks me out a little bit. It eats the dead skin off your feet. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
that
not
is just,
sure.
it's
Those
super
fish
gross.
create waste. I'll just let you know. It's really not very sanitary to do that.
And
Just
by the
letting
way,
everybody know.
not a good job for the fish either. I mean, I don't
I
know
think the
about the
fish kinda
fish
like it.
hierarchy.
I think your flaky feet taste good to the fish. I hope no one's
Oh,
eating lunch
the whole
right now.
thing's great.
Sorry.
But why do you need to watch people do it? Like, why would that be? I don't want to be watching people get massaged.
I
Now,
don't think it's like people pay extra to watch the fish eat your feet. Like, that's not a thing.
no, but I'm saying the entire business model seems predicated on the idea that they have fish eat your feet in the middle of a mall.
Kinda
Like, I
tickles.
never see it anywhere else.
I mean, I don't know if I've had this done or not with the fish, but it kinda tickles. Just telling you.
oh, you're a bit. You're just spending thousands of dollars a year on fish to eat your feet. This is going to come out.
The way you say you make it sound like a barracuda comes up and bites off your toe. They're little tiny
I don't
fish.
know how that, if I were
Protein.
donating money, right? If I were a loan officer at a bank and somebody came into me and they said, Mr. Travis, I've got a brilliant business idea. I need to borrow $30,000 to set up my fish eat people's feet business in the center of a mall. I think that anyone who ever gave any money to anyone with that business plan should be fired on the spot for being an imbecile. I have no idea how it works, but and why you would do it in the center part of a mall, right? Like, I don't get it at all.
But I mean, just think about all the years you've covered professional sports, for example. Those guys are getting rub downs after the big game on their quads and hammies by guys named Bob and Phil and Tom all the time. The team
Yeah,
trainer
they're
all the time.
multi-million-dollar athletes who have to perform at a peak level. You're a fat person with a roller bag in the Detroit airport. I don't need to see you getting worked on in the terminal.
All this physique elitism. I think
Oh,
even
I'm
if
just
we're
saying, like, well, yeah, there's a reason. This is my whole thing with Sports Illustrated. There's a reason why they have good-looking people in bathing suits in Sports Illustrated. Buck, you and me don't need to be posing in bathing suits in Sports Illustrated. Nobody's going to be like, you know what I want? I want the bathing suit those two fat guys on the
you kidding me?
radio
I feel like
wear.
I look
I got to
puffy in
buy
black
that.
tie these days. Yeah, too many. I
So,
need
I
more
mean,
layers. More layers is better, and I'm in
that's
Miami.
right. Like, there is, and the same thing happened. They lost $1 billion or whatever the heck they did when Victoria's Secret decided, you know what we need? We need to put fat people in lingerie. That'll sell more lingerie. No, people want to aspire to look better than they do. I don't want to buy something of somebody that looks like me. I want to make myself think that I'm going to look better in whatever I'm buying.
I'm still waiting for. Remember, like there are different cultures back in the day where being girthful was a sign of your wealth and prestige.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that to make a comeback. That'd be pretty awesome.
I don't think it's ever going to come back. Now
No,
Ozempic is out there and people are spending tons of money to lose weight like crazy. But yes, if they had back in the day of like Henry VIII, which I'm reading about all the kings in the 13 and 1400s.
Well, he was young and athletic and strong, but we just think of him when he was old and fat and having his wives' heads lopped off, which is very
That's
bad.
right. He fell apart. But it's because over time he got to eat so much good food that most people that you were able to brag basically based on your fatness that you had enough food to eat when most people were scrounging to be able to live. And they had to deal with what's the gout? They had to deal with eating so much unhealthy food that they ended up with health-related issues associated with it.
Gout is genetic, not actually the result of
Isn't it
heavy
also
food.
partly based on what you eat?
I think the food may trigger it, but gout is almost entirely genetic, is my understanding. I
Do
think
people still get gout like they did back in the day?
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
it's still a big deal.
But I think they can handle a little bit more. Anyone out there knows more about gout than us? Call in. How do Clay?
Same.
What is you just? We went off the track. We went, through a farmer's market. Ended up somehow in the midst of like a high school soccer game with this car. Like we're going all over the place.
Speaking of gout, scurvy, I've been reading about lately because I was reading about Magellan. All they had to do was give people orange slices, and it took like 400 years for people to figure it out.
Not even lemons, orange slices, any wild celery actually
Vitamin
would
C.
work. Well, anything with vitamin C. You're gonna love. I just ripped through that book, The Wager, which a lot of people have been reading. It's huge on Amazon. Really good read, and it goes into the whole scurvy. Dude, people die from it. Dying from scurvy is like a slow wasting. It's bad stuff.
And they had no idea what was causing it, and all the rich people on the ship were able to eat more, better food and often didn't have issues. And by the way, there's an argument out there that China, which was hundreds of years ahead of everybody with naval aviation before they decided that the naval, not aviation, obviously, but with the naval ships that they were building. And then they just decided we're not going to explore the world anymore. But there's reports, and they think it's true, that the Chinese were aware in like 1,000 of how to cure scurvy, and it didn't make its way to Europe until the 1500s, 1600s. Kind of crazy to think about, read about it.